Rolling.
Good afternoon. I'm your host and I'm excited. We're in here. We about to make it happen here on the Housing Podcast. We're here right after Thanksgiving. Today is November 29th, so we're a couple days away from December. We're here with our co-host, Mr. Marvin Jackson. How are you today, sir?
Hey, I'm great. How you doing? I'm glad to be back after.
Everybody returned in good health and good spirits, right? And we thankful for you guys for joining us here at the Housing Podcast. This is a platform, we like to provide education, and it's a resource for, the everyday family, right? Or if you're in the housing business, right? We're a resource for you too, to help you level up and help serve people better. Well, our topic of the day is Courthouse. So it's kind of a random topic, but the reason why we decided to kind of like touch on the courthouse, but because we feel like it's kind of like a sore topic, for a lot of people. I think as adults, right, as we start to, become a head of households, right? Renters, right? You have renters' rights as you start to, maybe get in a position where you could become a homeowner, right? You pretty much have owner rights. So there's a lot of rights and stuff that has to do with housing, right? So that's why, like, even myself, I have to get a license, right, in order to even sell property, right? And so I wanted to talk about the courthouse and how the courthouse, learning how to navigate it can be a benefit to you, whether you're common family, or you're actually a business person who's serving people with housing services. So just to kind of jump right into it, recently had to deal with some legal things within my business. And like, I like this platform to be transparent, right? Because I think like people can learn from it. But to make a long story short and without telling all my business, there was a complaint, right? There was a case that I didn't necessarily respond to. I responded in the beginning, right? I went to the lawyer for the plaintiff or the people who brought the case to me, and I was like, hey, look, this isn't a real case, right? What can we do to get rid of it? And we wasn't able to come up with a solution at that time. And so because I was in my feelings and I'm just like, man, I didn't get my way, right? We ended up at the courthouse, right? And so I kind of want to talk about the courthouse just a little bit, right, for the everyday family, right? And as well as like if you're a business owner and you're dealing with you're operating as a business, right? It's important to understand some concepts that you may have to understand or at least be aware of when in regards to the courthouse. And so just a couple things. One is if you've ever been a renter, right, and you receive an eviction notice or a notice to vacate, right? It looks a lot of different ways, but they usually put it on your door because there's a law, right, that says they have to give you notice. Same thing if you're a tenant and or a landlord or a business owner, right, and maybe you're in the office space and you get a notice to vacate, right, and maybe you haven't paid rent, or maybe there's another example that I experienced. So I'll take a break on the notice to vacate one. But that's a common one that most people kind of face. I would say if you've been a renter or if you ran into some financial issues and couldn't pay your rent, right? And how to respond to that. So when you get a notice to vacate, you want to respond immediately. I think they give you a certain amount of days. And I also want to say I am not an attorney. I am not an attorney. Mr. Marvin Jackson is not an attorney. I think what I want to do is just kind of give some stories that I've experienced, right? And just some learning lessons that I had to learn about in order to not get caught slipping in the future. Because the worst thing you want to do is not be proactive when there's a situation where you may end up at the courthouse, right? So I would say, without going too deep into a lot of this stuff, I'm going to introduce you to a couple of our referral partners. One of them, they're an agent with Legal Shield, right? Mr. Nick Tessie, he out here in the South Bay area. He serves a lot of clients, helping them get access to affordable legal services, right? And before I started my company, I actually partnered with a real estate broker who had a real estate attorney's license as well. And there was a reason for it, right? To have an attorney-backed brokerage. In an instance that, we are sued, you have affordable or at least access to attorneys. I think the main thing we want to encourage is that you need to be able to access legal services when you need it, right? We want to give you access to it. So we're not the legal professionals, but we want to give you some information where, hey, if you have to face the courthouse or go to the courthouse, then you know how to operate, right? And beyond that, right? I don't know if you've heard, but I mean, a lot of people buy property at the courthouse, right? When I first got into real estate back in 2007, well, I've been, different things. I would say as an investor, so to speak. I started off as a bird dog, right? And what that means is that I help find properties for investors. And so one of the strategies that I used to use to find properties at discount was I used to go to the courthouse, right? This is the time when I was living in the Bay Area, Santa Clara County. And they had certain days, right? I think, what was the day? I forget the days, but there were certain days where the courthouse, they'll have some properties that's pretty much going up for foreclosure, right? So some of them, they end up being sold right there at the courthouse, and some of them will end up going back to the bank, or, maybe the homeowner will come and say, hey, don't sell my house, I got some money, right? But at the end of the day, we found properties at the courthouse. So I want to introduce the courthouse as a source for real estate deals as well, right? A lot of times they have them posted at the real estate assessor's office. There's another place. But they have it posted, right? So if you go to your local courthouse, right? If you're in LA, I think our courthouse is in Norwalk area off of Imperial. Is that okay? Right. And so and you want to get familiar with your courthouse, right? If it's just for the fact of finding affordable real estate deals, hey, that's a way to find some great deals usually. So Mr. Marvin Jackson, I want to bring you in on this conversation just a little bit. I mean, I know we kind of talked a little bit offline just in terms of like, hey, a lot of this stuff it has the possibility of going over people's head in terms of whether or not it applies to them, or how we can make it apply in a way that is useful. So just give me your thoughts about this courthouse topic, and, maybe what you feel you could contribute to the discussion.
That's a pretty pertinent issue that you just raised, in the sense that the people that usually take advantage of these courthouse procedures are professional developers. And just as Tim said, he started out as a bird dog, as a service to these professional developers, because they have the money to go down, say, to the courthouse. But they do these, it's like auctions on the steps of the courthouse. And at that time, once a person has gone through, say, foreclosure and has extended the 90-day period in which to what they call cure or take care of the arrears in the house. If they don't do that, then they have another 21 days, which happens in terms of going to sell. What that means, you either have to pay the total note off, or just go, just subject yourself to your property being sold. And where is it sold? At the courthouse. And that's exactly what happens. And a lot of developers take advantage of this process because they got the money and say, like, hey, look, your property has a lot of equity in it, so definitely they'd be there to try to swoop it up. And these are professional people, and if your bank account and you don't is not flush enough to take care of the money at that time, I think you have a 25% obligation to put down at that particular time. I attended one of these auctions, mm-hmm. and the prelude to it, in other words. But they said that one of the stipulations, you have to have 25% uh, of the money that's required to buy this property going in. And then within, I think, 45 days, you have to be able to complete the total financing on the purchase of that property. And that 45 days is that means that these developers have the cash amount of money ready to purchase this property. The common individual is not really in a position to go down and take advantage of these type of process unless they have saved up through family, whatever, or individual resources. So, I mean, that's just an outlet. If you're in a position to do it, yeah, you can go down there and probably get some properties at a discount because these properties have been foreclosed on, and the individual's not being able to take care of it, and hey, their property went to sell. So you can come up with good equity in the property at this juncture.
So if you're a housing professional, right, looking for deals, right, the Courthouse is a source for you to find real estate property deals. Right, for various reasons, people get homes get foreclosed on, right, and we hope that isn't, nobody has to deal with that, but we're more so just want to give you information as to things that happen at the courthouse, right, that you can kind of be aware of and be, aware of how to navigate to take advantage of, right, because like he said, the professionals do it, but why can't we be professionals, right? We can just learn a little bit and be able to really generate a lot of, I would say, benefit to not knowing anything, right? For the simple fact where if somebody bring you to court, right, on and how to operate, most courthouses has a self-service department, right? So if you go to any courthouse, more than likely they're going to have a self-service department. So you literally, if you want to just be, if you have a day that you can invest to get comfortable with the courthouse, I encourage you to take a visit to your local courthouse, right? If you're in the Valley, right, go to Van Nuys. If you're, somewhere here, South LA, right, go to Norwalk, right? They have different courthouses that you can go visit, and they have a self-service department, right? And depending on what information you want to start off learning more about, you can ask them that, right? They can guide you to the right place, right? They're not going to be able to give you legal advice, but they can guide you to the right department or people to talk to. So one of the other things I wanted to mention is that, yeah, some people lose their homes by not paying their mortgage, right? That's like the typical one, and the banks take them through the foreclosure process. There's also an instance where maybe for whatever reason a homeowner hasn't paid the property taxes. And that's another way where properties, they get a lien on their property, right? And you can actually, as a common person, right, you can go to the courthouse or your county's recorder's office, depending on where they do their tax liens in your local community, and you can buy the tax lien. So you can actually just buy the tax lien. So say, for example, your neighbor didn't buy or pay for his taxes in the last 5 years. Right, you can buy his tax lien and say, hey, if you don't pay it off, then you have a good chance of getting a house, or at least for going through the foreclosure process, because they haven't paid the property tax. Another thing is if they do pay it, right, they say, hey, I want to keep my house, right? The government, you don't even have to do it yourself. The government, they charge them an interest rate, right, and they give you that interest rate for you buying or covering that fee for them temporarily, right? I actually got referred one of our in-house gurus, housing gurus, Mr. Felix. He gave me a tax lien investment audio book, right? I had a couple of these. I actually have a couple of these programs where it teaches you about tax liens and judgments, right? I think it's very important for you to learn about liens and judgments, right? Because it's really phenomenal how much happens at the courthouse, right? And so, like, here's another resource, a guy who did a program. His name is Mike Warren, right? He created a do-it-yourself guide on how to navigate judgment and lien, right? He called it a judgment and lien money machine, right? Because what he showed people how to do is to go into these courthouses and pretty much buy the lien, right? And how to pretty much be a proactive. And there's a lot of benefits, right? You can buy the lien at a discount. It's just a lot of benefits to that actually being as a revenue source for people. If that's of interest to you, reach out to us, housingbusinessowners.com or members at housingbusinessowners.com, right? We have a membership program. We have 3 levels, right? And join us on the first level. Can you pull up the levels of I call it the HBO program, the Housing Business Owners Program. But we got 3 levels. And the whole objective of the program is to give people the support they need. Right. I get calls all the time to say, hey, somebody need help with a contract. Right. They trying to get a grant or hey, somebody trying to start a group home, or hey, I'm trying to start, a shelter. Right. All of these things are things that we have to invest time in looking at each case by case and seeing how we can give people the right information.
I want to kind of interject a couple of examples in terms of those tax liens. You have to be very careful, and Tim's alluded to the fact you have to pay attention to your taxes on your properties because, like you say, after 5 years, hey, they can be, somebody can come in and swoop off your property just by paying your liens, and that's it. You don't have to own that property. There was an example of that a few years ago of a senior citizen. I think this guy was probably in his 70s or what have you, and he had ownership of a condo. Of course, he not paying attention. He got notice, hey, look, you have a tax lien that you have to pay. And he just, okay, fine. He naturally, he wasn't paying attention. He just let it go. After 5 years, he got a notice that he had to get out of his house. And they said, what do you mean? This is my house. I don't have to get out of my house. And the guy showed him by the process of a tax lien, they had actually gained ownership to his home. It was pretty kind of brutal to the guy. So what happened? Some people did step in and help him save it because he had no knowledge of what was going on. Plus, he had not been paying attention. So, but this is like kind of a unique kind of situation. But the average person, and the reason why there is a tax lien industry is because a lot of people don't pay attention to tax or they can't pay them. And that's another way of professionals being able to, I guess you might say, gain on the system of ownership of houses. But at the same time, Tim alluded to something, hey, look, why don't we ourselves, as ordinary people in the community, gain knowledge of this process and actually do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to get done, and then a lot of times we feel bad when people not from the community ends up taking over properties and you're like, hey, how did that happen? I didn't even see it listed for sale. And, it all happens at the courthouse, right? And sometimes even in other ways, right? But the courthouse is a lot of that's where it happens a lot of times when it's not listed. Even, if someone passes without a will in place or a heir, right, they go to probate. The property has to go through probate, which is at the court, and, they hire somebody to pretty much sell the property or at least relinquish the property, at a certain price. And so you have to go to the courthouse and go through their whole probate process, right? And I remember I used to actually, I used to go to people, homes who, they insert probate, right? And, try to make that a service. But that was just so hard for me because a lot of the times the emotions were still raw. They wasn't ready for that conversation to be had about, what they're going to do with the property. But, the reality was they were in probate and the property was up for sale. And so we want to be proactive when it comes to the courthouse. We want to know the different scenarios that can happen and how we can, put ourselves in a position where we can take advantage of, maybe opportunities, right? Or maybe prevent ourselves from our property going to the courthouse, right? By understanding the repercussions of certain scenarios that could happen, right? As a homeowner or as a renter. right? And the example that Mr. Jackson just stated about the 7-year-old man who lost his home. How long was he living there?
Well, guess he's been there for quite a few years. I don't know how long, many years, but he was there long enough not to pay his taxes.
Yeah.
For at least
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
And not pay attention and to lose his home. Another thing, I think all this process can lead into another situation. I don't think we pointed out is if these houses are not bought for some reason at the courthouse, as you alluded to, or either through whatever, the banks have a lien or note on these properties. So what happens if they're not purchased there? Then it goes back to the banks, and then that is called what you call REO, or real estate owned property by the banks. Then you can go, hey, look, search these banks. Say, what is your inventory of REOs? Because they don't want those inventories on their books. And you could probably, and then they have a broker that they have engaged to negotiate people on the sale of these REOs. And a lot of times you can get properties at a discount through that process also.
So REOs is one of the things I was first interested in when I got into investing. I was like, all right, I hear a lot of people making a lot of money on REOs and stuff. And then during that time, that was when a lot of people were doing short sales as well. You know, they had more mortgage than their property was worth, right? And so when they sold their property, they had to call it a short sale in order to get it approved, you know, to sell it without, you know, debt still being owed. But you know, it's a lot to it, right? Like you said, it could get advanced. And so I think what we want to do is offer up resources, right? If you're literally just like, I don't know an attorney, I've never been to the courthouse, like all of this is kind of foreign to me, I really want to just introduce a couple of, and I mentioned one already, but I also want to offer some other nonprofits, because I know a lot of people, like everybody's not from California, everybody's not here in Southern California. So I'll start off again with Legal Shield, just because they're nationwide. And they literally have, so if you go to individuals and families, they have a plan, right, for renters. They have a plan for landlords, right, and they have estate planning, right. So they have all these. So, you know, to avoid going to the courthouse for the wrong reasons, right, you can get a lot of these things in place. And if you're a renter, you can have them look over your lease agreement, and I actually recommend that. Have them look over your lease agreement. And another thing that what we've been kind of encouraging is even your rental application, right? That's actually a contract too. And so like if you want to just make sure like, hey, you're protecting your rights as a renter when you're applying, you know, we use a template renter application that you can have reviewed and just say, hey, like, you know, is there anything that I should know about my rental application in regards to like anything in regards to like legality, right? But the lease agreement is a you know, a very important one. You can pretty much get coverage with this group, right? I think it's like less than $30 if you want to get it set up for a month or however long you want to keep it. Another place that, and this is a SoCal, so this one is Nationwide Legal Shield. Another nationwide source, or not nationwide, but local source, is the Housing Rights Center. Right now, they're helping voucher holders or low-income households that have been discriminated against throughout their, you know, looking for housing process. They're helping a lot of people, you know, represent their rights that's going through that process. So we want to give another shout out to Housing Rights Center. And you can go to their website at housingrightcenter.com. And let me bring that up because I want to also highlight something else they have going on. And then the other one, as I'm pulling that up, is the Legal Aid Foundation, right? So these two organizations, Housing Rights Center and Legal Aid Foundation, they are nonprofits, right, that are funded to help low-income families or people that needs access to affordable legal assistance, right? I've accessed them, right? They will listen to whatever question you have, right? They'll refer you to more information if you need more information. If you're dealing with a situation that somebody's trying to take you to the courthouse, right, they will actually look at the case file, right? If you have a case file, they'll look at it, review it. So this is just another source, right? And like I said, it's a nonprofit. They have a hotline, right? It's 1-800-477-5977. Again, this is the Housing Rights Center. You can also go to their website at housingrightcenter.org.
Also, I think Tim was mentioned the legal aid. Is it Legal Aid Society or something like that, or
Legal Aid Foundation?
Foundation, yeah. They are very good in terms of. I think they have a component in terms of helping people with their evictions and what have you, because their services as a nonprofit component the cost is much lower, and they actually accomplish some same thing as what the professional legal services people.
Yeah, they
provide.
are their attorneys. Yeah. So like Legal Shield, they're like the access to affordable attorneys. Is more like a network of attorneys. That's hold on.
Right. I just
Housing Podcast. This is Tim. Hey, hold on just a sec. I can't hear you on my headphones. Say hello. Hold on. Try to get you looped in on the audio so we can all hear you. All right. So is this Nick?
It is.
Hey Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. So hey, we was just on the topic of different resources, and I'm glad you called. I tried to get you on a little sooner, but I'm glad you was able to get on. So Nick is an agent for Legal Shield, and we were kind of talking about different resources. So if you will, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Nick Tessie, an agent of Legal Shield. I've been with them about a year, and I think it's one of the best programs I ever purchased. I purchased it, and I was elated by all the services they have and the inexpensive cost they have. And they asked me if I wanted to represent them, and I jumped right into it. So I'm a very excited user of it myself.
Okay. So a lot of times we deal with a lot of times we deal with like the everyday, a lot of people that maybe don't interact with any legal stuff, or at least haven't yet.
Yep.
Is there like what would you recommend, or how do you suggest Legal Shield be a resource for those?
Oh, okay. I had the same thing, except every now and then I would need a lawyer, and I needed them quick, and then you have to go out and research and try to find a lawyer, somebody you can trust, somebody's not going to cost you the entire savings you have. So the first thing, once you get into Legal Shield, is to do your will. You got a free will you can do, and they said 70% of all Americans do not have a will. So it's very important you have one if you stop and think about it, because if you have anything worth leaving to anybody, you want to make sure the person gets it that you love the most. The second thing is emergency access. They have emergency access 24 hours a day. So if something happens to you driving at nighttime or something like that, and there's it's contested out in the street and stuff like that, you can do an emergency call to your lawyer on your phone to have them intervene on your behalf.
So like if somebody gets stopped or...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you have an accident with a car and everybody says it's your fault, and then they said, no, it's your fault, and stuff like that.
Well, how about like for housing? Like if somebody's going out to go apply for housing, or maybe, to purchase a home and they've been discriminated, like is that something that, that's worth the investment for them having?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, there's contracts on both sides. So whoever's showing you the house, if they're your real estate person, they typically have a contract written up, and you can send that right into them to make sure that you're getting the full representation you think you're getting. Then secondly, if you go into a contract with the owner or a lease with the owner, again, send that right into a legal system to make sure you understand completely what's in that lease, in that there's nothing hidden. If, for instance, in the middle of the year, if they start doing raises, then you can go right back to your lawyer and say, hey, they're giving me a raise, and he'll review the thing, and he says, no, they can't do that, and they'll send them a letter. So you have all kinds of ways to go, and you can call that lawyer every day if you feel necessary.
Well, Nick, can you give us your contact information? Because we definitely want to, just share resources. I know, Legal Shield, it pretty much serves nationwide, right?
Yes, not only nationwide, but also up into Canada, our northern neighbor.
Okay. Well, that's why I wanted to bring that to the forefront, because, I'm not an expert on all the local areas, but I know, like, you guys can help people out no matter where they are.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, can you give us your information?
Oh, sure. It's Nick Tesi, Tesi, and number 4 at gmail.com, or you can call me 310-717-2937. And I'm just right here in Redondo Beach, so I'm close to you all.
Well, hey, thanks for calling in, Nick. We appreciate you. We hope to have you back soon when we maybe have another episode on some specific situations that people are having. I know we got a renters workshops coming up, so we want to maybe have some more legal conversation in regards to the renters workshops.
Okay, great.
All right, thanks, Nick.
Pleasure being with you guys for the time.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Also, thank you, Nick. This is Marvin Jackson. I think something pretty, excuse me, pertinent and straightforward on this legal system that individuals should keep in mind when they do get evicted. It's almost a foregone process that's already almost concluded, in the sense that when you go to court on this eviction, the judge and the landlord basically have the upper hand on the individual that owes the money, because, he's basically breached his contract by non-payment.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is make sure you have good legal representations. And I think there's about 3 tiers to that legal representation. You go out, and if you got the money, go out and get you what is called a good, high-priced lawyer, And I know somebody did that. They started off with, maybe the attorney says, hey, look, I represent you. It's going to cost you $2,000, $3,500 straight up. And then she looked around. She finally.
Did you want to share who your high-priced attorney is? We're sharing right now. I mean,
no.
Okay.
So also the other person was, contacted. Their price was only $1,700, which was half the cost, I guess you might say, of the original high-priced attorney. But the only reason why I won't share, because I don't even know who they are.
Oh, okay.
She just relayed this to me. And so, but I told her there's also, as you mentioned before, I think Legal Aid Society has a component.
Legal Aid Foundation.
Foundation,
because that's what we were on.
Yeah,
and I pulled up the website. It's actually LAFLA.org. So Legal Aid Foundation, LA.org.
Okay, let me explain. Now, the third tier is to use the nonprofit organizations, which, they usually ask for a donation of about $500, $750 to represent you in court. But what I really want to get to is that the two main components that you want to come out with. Well, actually, there's 3. When you go to court on that eviction notice, first of all, you want to, if you have the money, just have the judge judge will allow you to pay it, but it's just up to the landlord whether he wants your money. So that's the first tier, whether the landlord wants your money if you have it at the time of court, appearing in the court. The second one is make sure you have good, I guess, a legal representation, because they usually can get, first of all, what they can get for you is maybe a payment plan if you have to move out of the property. So, you can avoid negatives on your credit. But the most essential thing is that they usually work out an agreement where this eviction notice will not go on your credit report. And so that whenever you go look for any other property, you don't have that eviction negative on there. So if you get those three things, actually the option either to pay it off and the landlord agrees, say, hey, look, let you retain the property. I mean, the lease property. And then the second thing is to either work out a payment plan in addition to getting making sure that you don't get an eviction notice on your credit report. And these are the two things that you should actually keep in mind when you do get representation, that these things, at least these two things are taken care of.
And so I got their website up, and you can see on their website, they have the eviction defense tab, and they have the housing and homeless tab. Okay. But I just want to point that out there, guys. And thank you for just expanding on all of this stuff, Mr. Jackson, because this stuff can get a little, like you said, it can get in the weeds. And I think the most important thing we want to do, like you said, is just give people the bare minimum of, hey, what are some pitfalls? What are some steps you should take if you don't have access to legal services? So if you can't afford, or if you don't have an attorney right now, right, look at maybe start off with the one he ended on, with the free ones, the affordable ones, the nonprofits, right? You can Google local nonprofit, legal nonprofit, or hold on, let me see. It's called disappeared. But yeah, they have different names for it. But I would definitely say, if you can't find one, we'll help you find one. So you can always reach out to us. And just to bring up our membership program again, the Housing Business Owners Membership, right? We're a network of professionals that partner up to help you build your business, right? Or help you accomplish your housing goals. So if you're, a renter, if you're looking to become an owner, or if you're in a business that serves people with housing services, right? We want to be a resource. We want to encourage you to join our Housing Business Owners Membership Program, and we have 3 levels. I don't know if we was able to pull up. I know it was a little hard to see, but we'll try to pull it up again right now. So we got 3 levels. Oh, okay. So we got a $200 level, $400 level, and an $800 level. And we have pretty much details on what you get for each access, right? But the lower level, the level 1, gives you access to the network, right? Where literally, if you want to start your business, right, this will kind of get you on the right track, positioning your business in a place where, hey, you're compliant, you got all the business certifications, you at least you're aware of the business certifications that you need, right? Because even that is a process. All right. So we just want to bring that out, and we wanted to also make sure we give a shout out to South Bay Podcast and Recording Studio, right? We love being able to provide quality education here. We love your hospitality. Always a pleasure being here at your studio. If you guys want to learn more about South Bay Podcast Recording Studio, you can give them a call at 855-9-RECORD, or reach out to them on Instagram at South Bay Podcast, right? It's popping. And, you can get to see some other, shows that's going on, right? And we enjoyed being able to provide, this topic to you today, the Courthouse, right? We're going to have some other episodes. Maybe we can bring in the Housing Rights Center or some of the local nonprofits that we talk about, just so we can kind of hear their voice, right? And get their perspective and recommendations on how to access their services. So, hey, we're ending, and thank you again for joining us at the Housing Podcast. Did you want to give them any statements before we headed out, Mr. Jackson?
No, exactly. Just appreciate your attendance by way of the podcast, and hopefully we can help you with any kind of housing or business situation that you're in. And if you have any particular topics, just write us or call us in, and we will address them. And hopefully we can relate to you, particularly in taking back your community as far as taking advantage of the gentrification for sure that's going on. And there's ways we can actually take advantage of that situation.
That's right. Let's take advantage of the situation. Let's empower ourselves. Let's continue to inform ourselves and educate the people that we love. Thanks again for being here at the Housing Podcast. Till next time. Peace.